My name is Rachel Morrison, and I never thought I'd be standing in a lawyer's office at 42 years old, trying to figure out how my ex-husband managed to steal not just my trust, but potentially my children's entire future. The Seattle rain hammered against the windows that October afternoon, matching the storm brewing inside my chest. It started 3 weeks earlier, on a Thursday evening. My daughter Emma, who's 15, came home from her dad's place with an unusual excitement in her eyes. "Mom, Dad showed us this amazing app he's developing. It's going to help people manage their family schedules and finances all in one place. He says it's going to make us rich." I smiled at her enthusiasm while stirring pasta sauce, but something twisted in my stomach. "That's nice, honey. What's it called?" "Family Sync," she said, pulling out her phone to show me some screenshots. "Look, you can coordinate everyone's calendars, split expenses, track allowances, everything. Dad's been working on it for months, apparently." My wooden spoon clattered into the pot. I knew that concept. I knew it intimately because I had sketched it out 7 years ago, during our marriage, on countless napkins and notebooks, while juggling 2 small kids and a part-time job as a software developer. Back then, Derek had called it cute, but impractical. He'd been too focused on his corporate consulting career to take my ideas seriously. But I'd done more than just dream. In 2018, frustrated by Derek's dismissiveness, but still believing in the concept, I'd filed for a provisional patent. Then, when our marriage started crumbling under the weight of his affairs and lies, I'd let it slip from my mind. The divorce had consumed everything: my energy, my savings, my ability to think about anything beyond survival. That night, after Emma went to bed, I dug through the boxes in my garage that I'd been avoiding since the divorce 2 years ago. My hands shook as I found the folder labeled Personal Projects. There it was, my patent application for Integrated Family Management System, filed March 15, 2018, and the full patent granted in 2019. Every core feature Emma had described was in my documentation. I couldn't sleep. At 2 in the morning, I was sitting at my kitchen table with my laptop, researching Derek's new venture. He'd created a LinkedIn page for Family Sync Inc., complete with professional photos and a slick website. He'd even secured seed funding, according to a local tech blog article I found. The piece mentioned he'd invested personal savings and family resources into getting the company off the ground. Family resources. My blood ran cold. When Derek and I divorced, we'd agreed to split everything 50-50. The house went to me because I had primary custody of Emma and our 12-year-old son Lucas. Derek got his retirement accounts and some other assets, but the thing we'd both protected fiercely was the kids' college fund. $125,000 we'd built together over the years. It was supposed to be untouchable, sacred, the one thing we'd agreed on, despite our toxic ending. The next morning, I called our bank. My hands trembled as I waited on hold, watching the rain streak down my kitchen window. When the representative finally accessed the account, her voice carried an apologetic tone that confirmed my worst fear. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm showing that Mr. Morrison made a withdrawal of $118,000 from the joint education savings account on September 3rd. Since both names are on the account, he had authorization." I hung up. I couldn't breathe. He'd taken almost everything. Our children's future, their college dreams, the security I'd sacrificed so much to build. Gone, poured into an app based on my idea that he'd once mocked. I called my best friend Jennifer, who'd been my rock through the divorce. She arrived within 20 minutes, finding me still sitting at the table, staring at nothing. "Rach, what happened?" She wrapped her arms around me as I finally broke down. "He stole from them, Jen. From Emma and Lucas. And he stole from me." The whole story poured out. The patent, the app, the money. Jennifer pulled back, her brown eyes fierce. "You need to call a lawyer. Today. Right now." Margaret Chen's law office in downtown Seattle felt like a fortress, all glass and steel and quiet competence. She was an intellectual property attorney Jennifer had worked with before, and she'd agreed to see me on short notice. At 50-something, with silver-streaked black hair and sharp eyes behind designer glasses, Margaret listened to my story without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "Do you have the original patent documentation?" I slid the folder across her desk. She spent 10 minutes reviewing it, occasionally making notes. The silence was excruciating. Finally, she looked up. "This is solid, Rachel. The patent is comprehensive and clearly predates his development. The question is, what you want to achieve here. I want my kid's money back, I said, surprised by the steel in my own voice. And I want him to understand he can't just take things that aren't his, ideas, money, trust. There's a path forward, but it won't be easy or quick. We'll need to file for patent infringement and potentially pursue criminal charges for the unauthorized withdrawal, depending on the specifics of your divorce agreement. I'll need to review that document. Over the next 2 weeks, Margaret and her team built our case. We discovered Derek had violated our divorce agreement, which specifically stated the education fund required both signatures for any withdrawal over $5,000. He'd forged my signature, crudely, but enough to fool a distracted bank teller. But telling the kids was the hardest part. I'd kept it from them initially, not wanting to poison their relationship with their father. But Emma noticed my stress, the late-night phone calls with Margaret, my distraction during dinner. "Mom, what's going on?" she asked one evening while we were loading the dishwasher. Lucas had retreated to his room after dinner, as 12-year-old boys do. I took a breath. "Honey, I need to tell you something about your college fund." Her face went pale as I explained. Not all the details, but enough. That their dad had taken the money without permission, that it was being used for his business, that I was working with a lawyer to fix it. "But that money was for us," she whispered. "For college. He promised." "I know, baby, and I'm going to make this right." "Is that why he showed us the app? Was he trying to make it seem okay?" Her voice cracked with betrayal, and my heart shattered watching her childhood innocence crack further. Lucas took it differently when I told him the next day. He got quiet, retreating into himself in that way that worried me more than tears would have. "I knew something was wrong," he finally said. "Dad's been acting weird, all excited but also nervous, like he was hiding something." The preliminary hearing was set for November. Margaret warned me that Derek would likely try to settle once he realized we had the patent. "Men like him don't want public exposure of their theft," she said, "especially when it comes to stealing from their own children." But Derek surprised us all. Instead of settling, he lawyered up with the aggressive firm known for scorched earth tactics. His attorney, a slick man named Richard Paulson, sent a letter claiming Derek had independently developed family sync, and that any similarities to my patent were coincidental convergence of common ideas. They also claimed the education fund withdrawal was legal since both names were on the account, conveniently ignoring the forged signature and the divorce agreement terms. Margaret was unfazed. "They're bluffing. They have to be. The patent evidence is too strong." As we prepared for court, I had to continue living my life, working my job as a software developer for a mid-sized tech company, helping Emma study for her SATs, getting Lucas to soccer practice, managing a household on a single income that was already stretched thin. The legal fees were mounting, and Margaret had agreed to work partially on contingency, but I still had to come up with retainer money I didn't have. My parents, retired school teachers in Portland, offered to help. "Rachel, you can't let him get away with this," my mom said over the phone. "That money is for Emma and Lucas. We'll figure out the legal fees." But I hated taking their help. They'd worked so hard for their modest retirement. This felt like Derek was stealing from them too. One night in late October, unable to sleep, I went down to my home office and opened the old files where I'd originally sketched out the family management app concept. There were dozens of documents, wireframes, feature lists, user flow diagrams, all time-stamped from 2017 and 2018. I'd been so thorough, so passionate about the idea. I remembered the night I'd first pitched it to Derek. We were sitting on our back deck, the kids asleep, rare moment of peace in our increasingly strained marriage. I'd been so excited, talking fast about how this could change things for families, make life easier, bring people together. He'd barely looked up from his phone. "That's nice, Rach. But you know how many apps are out there? The market's saturated. Focus on your job, your salary, that's reliable." The memory burned. He'd dismissed me, diminished my idea, made me feel foolish for dreaming. And now he was profiting from that same dream and using our children's security to do it. The King County Courthouse felt imposing on that cold November morning. I wore my best interview suit, navy blue, professional, borrowed confidence in wool and buttons. Margaret met me at the entrance, her presence reassuring. "Remember," she said as we walked through security, "stay calm, stay factual. We have the evidence. The truth is on our side." The preliminary hearing wasn't a full trial, but it would determine if we had enough evidence to proceed. Derek was already there with his attorney, sitting at the defendant's table. He wouldn't look at me. He'd aged in the 2 years since our divorce, grayer, thinner, with new lines around his eyes. For a moment, I felt a ghost of the concern I used to have for him, before remembering why we were here. Judge Patricia Okoye, an African-American woman in her 60s with a reputation for no-nonsense fairness, presided. She reviewed the preliminary documents, then looked up at both parties. "This is an unusual case," she began. "We have allegations of patent infringement intertwined with family law violations and possible fraud. Mr. Paulson, your client's position?" Derek's attorney stood, smooth and confident. "Your Honor, Mr. Morrison developed Family Sync independently, through his own skills and effort as a software consultant. While Ms. Morrison did file a patent years ago, the implementation and specific features of Family Sync are distinct. Furthermore, the withdrawal from the education fund, while regrettable in hindsight, was technically legal given the account structure." "The signature was forged," Margaret interjected, standing. "And the divorce agreement clearly stipulated—" "Counselor, you'll have your turn," Judge Okoye said, but her eyes had sharpened at the word forged. Margaret presented our evidence methodically. The patent documentation, with its detailed specifications. The time-stamped files from my personal computer showing the original concept development. Expert testimony from a software engineer who'd analyzed both my patent and Derek's app, concluding they were substantially identical in core functionality and design. Then came the bombshell. Margaret had subpoenaed Derek's personal computer and cloud storage. On his drive, they'd found a folder dated from 2018, during our marriage, containing scanned copies of my original sketches and notes. He'd kept them. He'd literally taken my work and claimed it as his own. The courtroom went silent as Margaret displayed the evidence on the screen. There, in my handwriting, were the original Family Sync concepts, photographed and saved on Derek's computer. Derek's face went red, then white. He whispered frantically to his attorney. "Your Honor," Paulson began, scrambling. "Those documents were joint marital property, created during the marriage, except the patent was filed in Ms. Morrison's name alone," Judge Okoye interrupted. "And these appear to be photographs of her personal work notebooks. Mr. Paulson, did your client inform you these documents existed?" The attorney's silence was damning. Regarding the forged signature on the bank withdrawal, Margaret presented the bank's documentation alongside samples of my actual signature. A handwriting expert testified they were inconsistent to the point of obvious forgery. "Your Honor," Margaret concluded, "Mr. Morrison didn't just infringe on my client's patent. He stole her intellectual property developed during their marriage, waited until after their divorce, then deliberately drained their children's education fund to commercialize that stolen property. This isn't a case of independent development or coincidental similarity. This is calculated theft." Judge Okoye called a recess. Those 20 minutes felt like hours. I sat in the hallway with Margaret, unable to speak, watching lawyers and plaintiffs and defendants flow past like river water around stones. When we returned, the judge's expression was severe. "I'm prepared to make preliminary rulings. First, regarding the patent infringement claim. There is sufficient evidence to proceed to trial. The similarities are too substantial and the documentation too compelling to dismiss. Second, regarding the education fund withdrawal, I'm issuing an emergency order freezing all Family Sync business accounts pending resolution of this case. Mr. Morrison, you will provide a full accounting of how those funds were spent. The forged signature issue will be referred to the prosecutor's office for potential criminal charges. Third, I'm ordering immediate mediation. You two have children together, and they're watching this. Whatever your personal grievances, those kids deserve better than a protracted legal battle that will drain whatever resources remain." Derek finally looked at me then, across the courtroom, and I saw something I hadn't expected: fear. Not of the legal consequences, but of what he'd become. For a moment, he looked like the man I'd married 20 years ago, before ambition and ego had corroded everything good between us. The mediation took place in a neutral office. Just Derek, me, our attorneys, and a mediator named Thomas Grant, who specialized in high-conflict cases. It was 2 days before Thanksgiving, and Seattle was draped in that particular gray that makes you forget the sun exists. Derek looked exhausted. The frozen business accounts had apparently caused serious problems. Investors were asking questions. His business partner, someone I didn't know, was threatening to sue. The house of cards was collapsing. "Rachel," he started and his voice cracked. "I'm sorry." I waited. Sorry wasn't enough, wouldn't be enough, but I wanted to hear what came next. I was desperate. The consulting business was failing, and I saw your old notes when I was packing after the divorce. I thought I could make it work where you couldn't. I told myself it was our idea, from when we were married, so it was okay to use it. He rubbed his face. And the money, I knew I needed both signatures, but I convinced myself it was an investment in the kids' future too, that when the app succeeded, I'd pay it all back with interest. But it was my idea, I said, keeping my voice level. You told me it was stupid, impractical, that I should stick to my stable job. You made me feel ridiculous for dreaming. And then you stole that dream, Derek. You stole from our children and from me. I know. He looked directly at me for the first time. I know, and there's nothing I can say that makes it right. I destroyed whatever was left between us, and worse, I hurt Emma and Lucas. Emma won't even take my calls now. The mediation process was grueling. Over 6 hours, with breaks, we hammered out an agreement. Derek would formally acknowledge the patent infringement and assign all rights to Family Sync to me. He'd repay the $118,000 to the education fund, not all at once, because he didn't have it, but through structured payments over 5 years with interest. He'd also cover all my legal fees. What happens to the app? Derek asked quietly. To Family Sync? I'd thought about this. Despite everything, the app was actually good. His development team had done solid work, even if it was based on stolen concepts. And there was something poetic about taking this broken thing and making it whole. I'm going to run it, I said. Margaret had advised me this was an option. You'll sign over the company. I'll keep the developers who want to stay, compensate them fairly, and actually bring this to market the right way. And Derek? 20% of all profits go directly to Emma and Lucas's college fund, in perpetuity. He nodded, defeated, but perhaps relieved to have a path forward. The agreement was finalized by early December. The prosecutor declined to press criminal charges for the forged signature in light of the restitution agreement, though it would remain on record. Derek's reputation in Seattle's tech community took a hit. Word spread fast in those circles about what he'd done. Telling Emma and Lucas about the resolution was complicated. We sat in my living room on a Saturday afternoon, Christmas lights twinkling on the tree we decorated together. I explained that their college fund would be repaid, that I now owned the app their dad had been working on, that things were going to be okay. Does this mean Dad's a bad person? Lucas asked, his voice small. No, honey. It means he made really bad choices that hurt people he loves. People are complicated. Your dad did something terrible, but he's trying to make it right. You get to decide what relationship you want with him. Emma was harder. At 15, she understood betrayal in a way Lucas didn't yet. I'm proud of you, Mom, she said, for fighting back, for not just accepting it. I fought for you too, I said. You're worth fighting for. Over the next months, I did something I never expected. I became a CEO. With Margaret's help and some small business loans, I restructured Family Sync. I hired a proper development team, improved the UI based on my original vision, and focused on data privacy and family security in ways Derek's rushed version hadn't. I also hired a business manager because I quickly learned that running a startup while being a single mom and keeping my day job was impossible. Sharon Martinez, a semi-retired tech executive, came on part-time and taught me everything about business operations, funding, and growth. The app launched officially in March, 6 months after that terrible Thursday when Emma first mentioned it. We got featured in a parenting technology blog, then in a mainstream tech publication. Slowly, Family Sync started gaining real users, families who actually needed help coordinating their chaotic lives. By summer, we had 50,000 users and were breaking even. By the following fall, we were profitable. I was able to quit my day job and focus on Family Sync full-time. Emma came to the office sometimes after school, watching me lead meetings, make decisions, build something real. You know what I realized? She said one day, sitting in my office that overlooked Elliott Bay. Dad took your idea and your money, but he couldn't take your ability to make things happen. That was always yours. Derek made his payments on time. We communicated only through lawyers and email. he eventually took a consulting job in Portland and saw the kids twice a month. The relationship was strained but functional. Therapy helped them all process the betrayal and rebuild something honest, even if it was smaller than before. 2 years after standing in that courtroom, I attended Emma's high school graduation. She'd been accepted to the University of Washington with a partial scholarship, and between that and her college fund, fully restored and growing from Family Sync profits, she'd graduate debt-free. During the graduation reception in our backyard, Jennifer pulled me aside. "Remember when you were sitting at your kitchen table at 2 in the morning, crying about what he'd done?" "I try not to," I admitted. "You've come so far, Rach. You took the worst thing he could do and turned it into something amazing." Looking around at Emma laughing with friends, Lucas playing basketball with his cousins, the life we'd built from the ashes of betrayal, I felt something I hadn't in years: pride. Not just in Family Sync's success, but in the example I'd set for my kids. I'd shown them that when someone takes from you, you don't just survive. You reclaim what's yours and build something better than they ever could have imagined. That ideas have value, that integrity matters, that mothers will fight like hell for their children's futures. Derek had thought my dreams were worthless. He'd learned the hard way that underestimating me was the most expensive mistake of his life. And as Family Sync continued to grow, helping families across the country coordinate their lives and support each other, I knew that my original vision, born from the chaos of raising kids while dreaming of solutions, had finally found its rightful place in the world. Not because someone stole it, but because I had the courage to take it back.